Welcome everyone to the second keynote of our first day at the Next Innovation Week. Interesting information, still wearing the same t-shirt. You see David Bowie, right? Which has actually two meanings in this particular session. You all know that actually David Bowie reinvented himself for many times, same as we did for our conference this year. And he was also very known for a very special experience towards his fans, meaning that he really understood customer experience from the very beginning. Today we have a very interesting panel discussion with the title "Why Customer Experience Management is the New Frontier for the Forward Thinking." A really great pleasure to welcome Haider Alek from Fairing. Hi Haider, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for the invitation, Dio.
Thank you. Elena from Microsoft. Elena, how are you?
Very good. Nice to meet you all, and looking forward to the conversation.
The very well-known Paul Sims. Paul, how are you doing?
Wonderful, thank you, Dario. Good to be here.
Thank you. And Sanjay Virmani, the CEO of Omnipresence. Sanjay, same question for you. How are you?
Good, great. Thanks for having us. This is sort of my first session here at this conference, so really looking forward to it.
Great, thank you very much. Before we start with this interesting discussion, I would like to mention a few things. First, our industry finally takes the path of transformation in many fields and ways, right? However, this transformation can't be done without proper customer experience. And we will hear how to make this transition working, but maybe we can benchmark it to other industries with best practices coming from Apple or Amazon, Mercedes-Benz, Louis Vuitton, etc. All those brands understood in early days that customer experience is the frontier for the forward thinking, and that is why their scores so high on different rankings from Forrester and some others as well. So in my personal opinion, I would say that they score very well because they understand their customers and they deliver extraordinary experience. And definitely quality isn't the key. I would say that experience in every meaning and process is. So let's start with this interesting discussion. I will pass the stage first to Paul, who has some very interesting insights. So Paul, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, and appreciate everybody who's taken the time to listen to me, although I'm sure that you'll get more insights from my fellow panelists. I suppose my position is one of being able to see what a lot of people are doing and what our industry is doing in the context of other industries, as you kind of alluded to, Dario. This is an important topic, and it's an important topic because I don't believe that we as an industry can rely solely, as we have been doing, on R&D for all of our innovation going forward. Let's be honest with you, even the word innovation, when we talk about our industry, is synonymous with the innovation in R&D, as opposed to the sales and marketing departments, which are often relegated to the position of kind of distributors. The creativity is what happens in R&D, and we do not necessarily fulfill what our promise is in the commercial side of the business. But if it's true that our pharma companies are now going to be judged and aiming for improving patient outcomes, then it's absolutely necessary to have innovation on the customer side if we are to achieve that patient outcome. Science is important, but science alone does not deliver what we require, and that is particularly important as we actually increase the sophistication of the science that we bring. We all know that cell and gene therapy, for example, is less of a medicine and more of a process or a system. And to think that it's just the science that's going to make that a success is a giant fallacy. So now is the time to invest. I want to just cast our eyes back. It feels like this year has obviously been multiple years all squeezed into one. But if we can think back to April, There's a company based in the US that I'm sure you've heard of. It's called Amazon, who, even at the very beginning, we could all see that they were going to be lockdown winners, shall we say. Obviously, unable to buy normal retail goods from anywhere else except e-commerce, but also the fact that, for example, in the US, a lot of the distribution of money was given to private individuals, thereby strengthening their wallets in many cases. We could see how this company was going to perform very well, and their share price was already rising very strongly at the start of the year. April was when they released their results for the first quarter, and we all expected a bumper increase. But no. Actually, what Jeff Bezos did and what his colleagues did was invest. They described that the investment required to create the first almost vaccinated supply chain or COVID-free supply chain was going to cost in the order of $4 billion. They had increased their workforce by 130,000 individuals already, and they plan to increase by another 100,000 to 200,000. Given obviously that the largest pharma companies have only 100,000 employees or just over, I think you can see the scale of that kind of work. So Amazon, you or I, if we'd been running Amazon, we probably would have been running all the way to the bank. Woohoo, we've been, you know, as lucky as can be. But no, these guys decided that absolutely now is the time to invest in providing that competitive edge. And that, I believe, has got to be the attitude. I would go so far as to say that if companies are making a significant increase in their profits in 2020, then they've probably missed that opportunity to invest, given the state of healthcare disruption today, the difficulties that our customers are actually facing across the board. So now is the time. Consider also, I don't want to really speak for Microsoft considering we have Elena here with us, but also made major investments. For example, very few of us used Teams prior to the lockdown, and focusing on triage bots and various other Teams-based offerings, programmatic efforts, remote visits becoming the new normal, and obviously changing a lot of virtual supply chain activities. It was a significant investment on their side too. So we're always looking at these technology companies as examples. Let's, put our money where our mouth is and actually really work according to them. So next slide, please. I think that it's important that we have something of a definition of customer experience going forward. When we discussed this prior, we all decided that this definition was key. But I don't think that what we want is another pithy, clever phrase that we put on our wall or lock in a drawer somewhere. I think that what we need is a customer experience vision. And by a vision, again, I actually want to point a finger at Microsoft, as a company that's done this quite well over the last decade. I don't know if you've seen some of the videos that Microsoft has produced, which just sort of show what life could be like in the near future. And some of these videos have racked up 20, 30 million views. So it's quite likely you may have seen some of them. If not, definitely do have a quick search on YouTube, after the webinar, obviously. What's remarkable about those videos is that, yes, they show cool new technology, but what's almost more remarkable is how seamless that technology is. That's kind of the dream right now, is for things to just work. And we've seen, obviously, with COVID testing and all the confusion around that, there's so many things that don't work. So I suggest that the customer experience vision that we should be providing right now is one of integration and one of processes actually working together. Let's show that vision of what it could look like in order to align our currently very misaligned customers. That's the kind of story, the narrative that I think that customers can also buy into and see very strongly how we can make that future happen. So perhaps find creative ways of delivering that story. That's definitely what I would advocate. And you can see here we've got projects of the future need a great customer experience management system. That's absolutely the truth. these days we decide that we want sophisticated personalization. We decide that we want a clever way of showing our slides. We decide that we want new tools for our sales force. Every time we make one of these decisions, it generally involves a new vendor, a new dashboard, and a new process. And as you can imagine, it creates confusion, particularly on the front line. So I'm very happy that Omnipresence are here today, because I think they do have one of the strongest solutions here, which it's precisely because of that integrated nature that I mentioned earlier that it actually works. Just consider, you know, I've been talking to a lot of chief digital officers recently. A lot of them have said to me, it's not about them having the most sophisticated technology anymore. We can actually do the post-pandemic world with the tools and technology we already have. It's just the lack of interoperability, the lack of joined up thinking, the lack of actually creating that customer centricity that we talk about, have been talking about for so long, and actually finding ways to do it. There are the tools available now. I think it's a time for less excuses, more joined up thinking, and as I said to you earlier, investing on the same scale that technology companies have been investing, and maybe thinking about ways even to make customer experience a strategy rather than just a tactic, to actually build it in. I won't go on about it now, but there's a company called Lemonade based in the US. They're an insurance company, and I believe that they show a very nice example of how actually changing customer experience from a strategic point of view has effectively created a brand new business model and created a pioneer or a challenger in a very regulated and old-fashioned industry. Wonder where I've heard that before. And I think there could be some nice examples coming forward from places like that. So yeah, read widely to broaden your horizons, absolutely. And I suggest that is the attitude that we try to take forward from here. Let me hand it over to somebody else now before I bore everybody.
Thank you, Paul, for the very interesting insights. Maybe we need in pharma to have chief happiness officers, right? Who knows? But I would like to encourage our audience also to ask questions. If there are any questions, you're able to do that. And in some moment, we will, of course, answer on those together with the panelists. Let's move forward to the next panelist, which is Haider Alek from Fairing, who also can definitely give some very interesting information in terms of the customer experience. So Haider, please, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Dario. Do you hear me well? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. So indeed, just a bit of an intro of Fairing. Fairing is a mid-sized pharma company. We are established worldwide, but we have, when I say mid-sized, we have between 6,000 to 7,000 people, just to put it into a context. And I think there is an interesting aspect of mid-sized pharma when it comes to customer experience, because both small companies can look after those mid-sized pharma companies in this regulated industry to see what can work at scale, disrupting from within those company customer experiences. But also bigger pharma can look at those mid-sized pharma and saying, oh, those guys actually managed to have some shortcuts in terms of decision making and get it to till the last mile to the customer experience. I think this is what I personally like, working for such companies. And I think Fairing is also here at a transformation point where we are super decentralized. At least we were super decentralized, and we to a point where there is now a strong need, if we want to succeed for vision, to have this systematic, consistent customer experience wherever you are in the world. And I think this is definitely a strong driver of value for the company. So that is when it comes to the digital side, there is a good thing about this, because you can systematize a lot of things using the same platform. You can template a lot, right? That's what technology can bring to you. But there is also something coming from the cultural aspect of having a company looking toward the same direction. And I think this is where, on top of customer experience, we started, I think, our journey from an employee experience. So this was an interesting take, because we wanted to really have a vehicle to express that customer experience and employee experience. And that vehicle was for us our corporate brand, which was existing for 70 years, and we really didn't activate it online. So that's where our journey began, for that customer experience. So I don't know if you have my slide after, just yeah, it's okay. So what is, if you can just go one slide back. What is for us interesting when it comes to creating a systematic customer experience for our country, because you have to imagine sitting at the headquarters, whatever we do here and decide here will have to go through different doors, right, and hit the last mile with the customer. So I think when we started with that corporate brand, and if you hit our social media channels, you will see that it happened around 3 years ago. We started with a minimum viable customer experience. We started with information, authenticity, and how do we want to talk to potential consumer, potential parent, potential patient, and doctors. And you have to imagine back then, and even now, not everyone is going to like a pharma company Facebook page. I mean, it's like insurance company. You go hit those pages whenever you have a problem, not because you love them, but somehow we wanted to prove that if you truly have an authentic message, if you truly have that purpose and everyone is actually behind you, you have the whole force of 7,000 employees behind it, you can actually create a condition to create that engagement. And this started from for us to have really a first touch point using those digital channels with our end users in a way. And from that, this evolved into creating, now that we had a loop of feedback, it helped us go into more sophisticated services or solution, if I can say. And those solutions are maybe a bit complicated to release from within. That's why we decided at some point that indeed we see the need. We have that population in front of us now that we created our story. But to fulfill that demand, we decided, as we are not a tech company, to start partnering with an ecosystem of startups or an ecosystem of big tech innovator, and to really help us deliver value. And it is working, because if you have a systematic customer experience, from within, and you create a condition for having the right partners, that sense of a customer experience that should be systematic, universal, and true, to the initial vision, is actually getting along to your partners, because they join you for that battle to really be obsessive about that customer experience or patient experience. So I think that led us to get a bit more ambitious in the services we have, not only externally. Yes, we started to discover that, yes, as Paul was saying, you can really get machine learning, a turnkey solution going to any big tech provider and really get going. And we had those issues. For example, social media marketing is creating a lot of works, right, for us. So as soon as we detected that we had a problem, it helped us identify potential solutions, and there are plenty. And if you have the right partner, it's easy to tackle. It's also it gave us a nice sandbox using that external ecosystem. It gave us ideas to also disrupt internally on some machine learning based projects in terms of how can we solve solutions problems at scale with more smarter solutions. Like, for example, you hear me talk sometimes about digital twins, and if you have your company factory on in silico, and you start having problems you can actually now solve with the power of AI, then you can start having technology tamed, not just as a beauty contest in those nice business meetings, but actually to really be an answer to a business problem. So I think that is, I think, where this journey is taking us now, to the point where we are really looking forward now to create even stronger relationships in the future with this ecosystem of partner, but also to bring or stabilize what we learn from a corporate perspective into the business, into our brands. And I will stop there just after that tour on where we've been running at Fairing. So yeah, that is examples of where this started with an internal campaign with that Lego baby, and that's my colleague Lindsay, and that Lego baby, if you come to the headquarters, is still there, right? It's a symbol of the beginning of that transformation. Next slide. And this is right now the 4 buckets of project we started to identify where we could potentially identify solutions. And again, for me, at least being in digital for the last 15 years now, I'm fearing, the point where what if tomorrow you only have, an assistant on the table that will filter everything you're trying to do. So I think this journey is taking us into a much more data-driven, way of working, and creating those projects is a way for us to test drive what should be done internally and what should be done externally. So yeah, and that's just an example of one of the projects we've done last year to actually create a better navigator for potential parents. And if you look at that project, it's interesting to see it's not faring, right? But we managed to align the vision with a startup that actually managed to get aligned with us on exactly the same end result, which is getting potential parents, a faster track to their goal here to have a baby. I think this is an interesting lesson for us, that we don't need every time to be a tech company to actually have an impact to the last mile. And the next slide, I think there is another one, which is interesting because on this one, this is a US project, piloted by my colleagues there. And I think in here, it was also interesting to see that actually it was the opposite. People wanted to see people, and they didn't want to have an app and a companion. And they really felt at some point that psychological impact that this journey can have on getting a baby, they need counseling. And I think this is what we are lucky to have now. We have a bit more background at shaping the next generation of customer experiences for our doctors and our patients.
Thank you, Haider.
And that was the last slide. Yeah.
I would encourage once more to our audience to ask any kind of questions to our panelists, which we will, of course, answer at the end of this session. So let's move forward with our next panelist. We're really glad to welcome Sanjay Virmani, the CEO of Omnipresence, who is also describing some very interesting insights when it comes to customer experience. Sanjay, please, the word is yours.
Thank you, Dario. I hope you can hear me okay. Okay, and I completely agree with both, Paul and Haider, and in fact, to the extent that from our vantage point, I really do believe that customer experiences and patient experiences are a strategic pillar in life sciences going forward, just as much as the science and the supply chain, manufacturing, distribution. Those things have been. It's in all sectors of life sciences, right? It's pharma, it's vaccines, it's consumer health, it's nutrition. In fact, if you look at what is actually happening with the the vaccine story that we are all kind of anxiously looking for next year, you can see that it's just as much a science problem as it is a manufacturing and distribution problem, and it is a communications and trust generation problem. And those things are hugely related to how life sciences organizations adapt in this new world and create these types of customer and patient experiences. This was true, even before the pandemic, with the advent of the kinds of things that Haider was describing and Paul was talking about at the beginning. Digital pharmaceuticals, digital biomarkers, variables, insightable, biosensors, quantified health. All of these things are precision medicine. I don't know if you know, but the National Institute of Health here has a research program called the All of Us study, in which their aim is to enroll 1 million US individuals into this giant database where we will contribute, those of us who participate will contribute our health information, nutrition information, and digital information. And this would sort of be their kind of largest health database of this kind ever created, with the intent to do sort of precision medicine studies. These are the kinds of things that were anyway underway, and kind of point to this direction where we really have to think of customer experiences and patient experiences as a fundamental, strategy, and not just something we do in sales and marketing and, the different corners of the organization. It is, I think it has a fundamental impact on how we can create, improved health outcomes. That time is now, especially now with the pandemic. We see organizations that have these kinds of objectives, strategic objectives over the next 3-4 years, trying to accelerate that 5 times, 10 times, right? 5x, 10x, trying to do those things in, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 months. Now, some of that is a matter of, the opportunity, and some of it is a matter of necessity as well, right, for digital continuity. But I think this is a very interesting moment, where this idea that, customer experiences, which we have, thought of as a functional objective, is now really a cross-organizational objective at the same level as, science. It impacts what kind of patient experiences and healthcare professional experiences we create during the development of products, during clinical trials, for example, right? We again see that with a lot of the COVID vaccine trials. We see this during commercialization. Obviously, that's always been true. We see it now with the direction of personalized medicine, and sort of using the combination of digital data as well as medicinal or medical device therapeutics during the entire therapeutic journey, right? I mean, this is really the only way that we would be able to deliver improved outcomes is by thinking of this as a cross-organizational issue and strategy, rather than just something we do in sales and something we do in marketing and all these different islands of sort of excellence. Now, in an atmosphere like this, with huge acceleration, huge pressure, you can move to the next slide, please, Dario. There is a risk that these things become sort of a tech fest, if you will, a beauty contest, to use your word, Haider, where all of us in different parts of the organization run out and get the next best technology and try to call that an improvement in customer experience. Our vision is different. Our vision at Omnipresence, we obviously partner strategically with Microsoft and many other life sciences organizations to really redefine, reinvent what is meant by customer experience. And this is sort of a close representation of our vision together with Microsoft, where all of these different aspects, right, whether it is a patient engagement aspect or how we engage with public health organizations or doctors and pharmacists and so on, become sort of part of this continuum where there is a common underlying technology, a unified platform. In our estimate, the industry already, even before COVID, spent something like $10 billion on each of these individual islands of excellence. That's a lot of money, and I would say that the return on that kind of investment is simply not there, right? If you look at any of the comparisons between our industry and others, we don't see us ranking very high in terms of the customer and patient reported experiences. And I think it's because we haven't taken this kind of an approach where things are truly interconnected. They feed into a common data model. The intelligence and analytics is not something which comes later, right? It's really part of the recipe in all these different use cases, and ultimately we can deliver that sort of smooth, connected experience that leading organizations like Amazon, as was mentioned a couple times, Uber and others are very good at creating, and that's how they have won. Now, it's also true, in my opinion, that it's not only about the new ideas, but also about liberating ourselves from the old ideas, right? From freedom from the old ideas, the old ways of thinking, and in that sense, it's not just the technology, but it's also sort of the cultural aspects of and the organizational aspects of these things. So bottom line, how at least I look at it, and what we are observing in working with organizations, like Haider's and others, is that a fragmented technology ecosystem and a fragmented culture both add up to ultimately break the customer experience and the patient experience. And we think this is a very acute issue. It's a very transformative opportunity, but it's also an acute issue in this sort of post COVID scenario. One example I can give you, from the work that we are doing is really around, patients who have actually recovered from COVID. As you know, there's millions of people like that, and now there's a real gap in kind of providing post disease recovery support. Right, there's a lot of technology, information, and emphasis from public health organizations and also from private organizations in the pre-disease phase. Screening, tracking, tracing, getting the people who need that help to the hospitals, putting in protocols to control the infections. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff. But what about the 20+ million patients who have recovered? Right? Are we providing adequate support for them in terms of their sort of mental health, their nutrition, the symptoms, post recovery, whether it is in terms of anticoagulation or whether neuromuscular issues and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of different things that actually kick in with this disease, appear to kick in with this disease post recovery. So we work together with Microsoft using Microsoft Dynamics and HealthPod technology to very rapidly put together this resource, which we think help fills this gap. Now, if you get a chance and take a look at it, it is purely conversational, right? There's no real sort of forms to fill and things like that. It's all integrated in a conversational mechanism, and it because we already had the kind of underlying unified technology, for us to add this kind of interaction with patients who are in this recovery phase is something which could be done in a couple of months, while at the same time, kind of applying the same data frameworks, the same data protection frameworks, and also the AI and intelligence frameworks that we already have, right, in the fundamental platform. So this is an example of what is possible, within the timescales and the sort of rapid, accelerated motions in which we are all now. And I mean, I truly think that the moment is now. The time for these new ideas is really now, because those organizations that make these investments, that look at it as a unified, technological problem, unified cultural problem at the organizational level, right? Not just at the individual department level, are really the ones that are, going to come out ahead. And the others will follow. I have no doubt. I mean, in the next 5 years, the experiences that we deliver to our customers in this industry will fundamentally change. I have no doubt about that.
Thank you, Sanjay. Let's move forward to our next panelist, which is Elena from Microsoft. Elena, same question for you. So how you define the customer experience mission? So the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. A lot has been said already by my esteemed fellow panelists here, so I'll try to just sum up a few key points. The time is now, and definitely as the world was reacting to COVID, we have seen digital adoption and digital transformation that we had, all of us, been advocating for, reading in papers and try to sell in different shapes and forms. All of that that we are advocating for in years came to pass in just a matter of few weeks, few months. So it has been an interesting moment to think about what does a next generation new experience look like, and what are the key elements that will have to define it. And being clear on the purpose and the mission, going back to Haider's, the brand and what we stand for, is a very important and powerful North Star. So at Microsoft, we did a very clear reflection on this from the very beginning, when actually our CEO, Siad Nadella, sent out a mail to and a blog that, by the way, you can check out, saying we want to take the position of the digital first responders to those first responders that are out there saving lives, or powering up supply chain and manufacturing operations, or trying to sell goods and so on. So there is a digital posture. That means really making sure that the purpose is clear and that you are clear in what type of action you try to achieve in the experiences, and empowering others to use digital tools better and to therefore have better resulting experiences is what we should strive for. Now, when you think about the fact that there has been a massive increase, between 30 to 80% of consultations moving to digital in providers, in hospitals that were not geared up for virtual health, for telehealth in massive ways at scale. So if we think about the shift that has been done, if we think about the NHS being powered by 1.3 million people that were using Teams as a collaborative platform for care collaboration, care coordination. If we think about 500 million interactions using smart bots, conversational AI, built upon the healthcare bot that was already there and that has been used and redirected for triage. What we see happening is the digital front door of any interaction in new ways. So if you go to the next slide, what I think is important is that, first of all, we are clear that these digital interactions, these experiences, are going to be data-driven. If they are going to be data-driven, they will be successful only if there is an underlying interoperability of the solutions. There is no other way. We need to come to terms with a shift from a plethora of beautiful point solutions to an integrated underlying platform. I very much like the slide that Sanjay has used, because actually that infinity loop is also the digital feedback loop. If you think about the fact that across your customers, product, processes, the people that have to operate those processes, there is a digital feedback loop that has data at the center. But if data is trapped between my solution, your solution, and his solution, and there is no underlying rail track that is interoperable, then we are never going to have the next generation experiences. That's why, for example, Microsoft has been doing tremendous investment to embrace FHIR, Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resource, as a standard to make sure that data could become not only more liquid, but also that application at the level of systems, there could be an exchange. And once you have that condition, and once you start shifting the lens from my patch to an ecosystem of solutions that have to operate together, then I believe we start having new conditions for those digital front doors to work. So imagine telehealth, imagine providers that have now shifted to this very high percentage of digital consultations. For example, 80% of them say that they are much more positive now when they think about telehealth. So they're going to start asking themselves, why would I have a teleconsultation with a patient, but then I have a face-to-face engagement with a pharma sales rep? That is no longer possible. We knew already that 2 out of 10 of pharma sales representatives, were trying to approach the healthcare professionals in a different way, and healthcare professionals started to really onboard those digital and omnipresence, as I like to, Sanjay, if you allow me, omnipresence type of interactions. But that is going to be really the new reality. Hybrid engagement models in which you have the in-person, you have the digital, and you have it powered by data and artificial intelligence. If you want a very provocative statement, one could almost say that in a face-to-face encounter, a seller in a very, very short term will be almost disadvantaged. Why is that? Because the human brain alone will never be able to capture all the signals that one could have if we have a digital call, for example, supported by an assistant that in the background, looks at the data, provides you the next best action, or for example, as a follow-up with a smart bot, a smart assistant that will know the best time to engage with my target audience. So that hybrid model is data-driven, is interoperability enabled, and is really a shift from a point solution to a platform level, where the platform is integrated set of managed services and capabilities, where we can manage data, healthcare data in the cloud with the privacy and security concerns that are very specific to a highly regulated industry and to healthcare. So if we go to the next slide, I don't want to talk tech without talking usability. So accessibility, the opportunity to give people experiences in the way they could best access it. This is, I think, front and center. And this has become front and center when we have seen the overwhelming effect on healthcare systems providers, in which call centers were inundated by citizens or patients just trying to have questions asked. And when we think about that situation, the ability to have smart assistants as triage support that were really as usable, as easy as an interface as possible, has made a tremendous difference. In the future, voice enabled, ambient clinical intelligence, the ability of AI to understand the conversation between a patient and a doctor, and similarly to transcribe and do the analytics behind it, but also between a sales reps in a pharma and an healthcare professional. That is going to be our future. There are already AI-enabled type of digital selling tools, actually, that we are also using at Microsoft that would be able to analyze our call now and say, beep, 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 you're talking too much, stop, pause, ask questions, or maybe, give the others time to interact. So this is to say the mix of accessibility criteria, voice-enabled, digital assistants, and AI in the background that gives us the next best action will determine the future. And with that, probably talk too much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Elena. Let's take some questions from the audience. So the question which I would like to ask is, what is exactly the needed customer experience that we should strive for nowadays, especially after Corona era? The question which we received and which I suppose is quite interesting to answer, right? Who would like to answer first?
Dario, can you reread it?
Of course. What is exactly the needed customer experience that we should strive for nowadays, especially after Corona era?
I think, if I may, building an environment for trust is the first thing. So I think Elena already mentioned that there is no more excuse to put the GDPR flag and say we can't do that because of this. I think we need to bring. So that comes with creating also, I use the word authenticity, because there is nothing worse than coming on a long page with 80% lawyer's jargon and 20% real, human being, thing to read, right? So I think it starts there. So, or when I listen to, I'd love to go on that platform, but please don't allow the comments, right? So this starts from us, from create a condition for trust and create a condition for that commitment. And that starts from, it's an inside out commitment. And if you're not ready, find some help to do it, because outside there is no more excuse to not do it. So that's, I will start there. Yeah.
Anyone else?
And if I could just add to what Heider just mentioned, I mean, obviously the the facet of creating trustworthy and authentic information and experiences, I think is without question. But I also think, like Elena was mentioning, towards the end, that having an accessible customer experience that is really unified across different communications and is intelligent in the sense that we, using all the data rich environments that we create in life sciences, can actually look at what are the customer needs right real time, and every individual customer is different. So I think personalization is the other facet that I'd mention here, beyond trust and authenticity. We've talked about this idea of personalization for a while, but now I think technologically and operationally it is actually possible to achieve that, provided the leadership was behind it and embraced it, and to Haider's point, stop making excuses.
Yeah, I think there are two additional points. Number one, I think those experiences really need to take to reduce the workload, the burden. We know that there is desktop medicine fatigue, right? Burnout. So we need to have those experiences that are seamless, that make it easy, so that they are adopted. So, for example, we just launched as part of our teams for healthcare offering a connector with the electronic medical record, so that when the doctor does a virtual visit, out of, for example, the Epic electronic medical record, all the data are surfacing in an easy way. Similarly, if I'm a citizen, I have a mobile RTC experience, I don't have to download another application and so on. If not, people will not adopt it. And we need to be realistic here. Personalized, as Sanjay just said, and seamless, with a continuous feedback loop, which is very normal for companies that are digital natives or that have been in tech the whole time, or for automotive companies like Tesla, right? But they are not, the digital feedback loop is not in the culture, in the mindset of more traditional players. And that's an invitation to do that by design.
I want to go back very quickly to something I said earlier, and I don't disagree with what my fellow panelists have said, but I think I would like to contextualize it a little bit. I think that we need to start with ambition. I think it's easy to say start with trust, but very difficult to actually do it. And I think that if we start with ambition, this naturally drives attention. That's why I said we need a vision for our customers. If we describe the world, and we're not very good at this in our industry, I mean, I would even struggle to pinpoint very many of our leaders who've actually painted the picture in much detail of what the future could be like, even as simple as an ecosystem for testing and tracing on COVID. So start with ambition. This drives the attention because ambition is interesting in itself. And then that drives the accountability, the trust that Haider brought up and that everybody was echoing. But we can't just build the trust from a sort of vanilla, we're going to sort of be good citizens. That's unfortunately boring. It's trustworthy, but it's boring. So ambition, attention, accountability, and then finally accountability is what drives the action. So four A's that I think that everyone said those things, but I just think the order of them is perhaps where we need to go about it. And of course, achieving those 4 A's is a matter of having the sort of interoperability and integrated systems that allow us to personalize communication, as my colleague said.
Thank you, Paul. Next question. How important is it to have a dedicated function focusing on customer experience? Maybe a chief happiness officer, who knows?
Everybody needs to. It's one of those things. If everyone's responsible, nobody's responsible, right? But the truth is that everyone outside of the R&D department should be supporting a customer or patient benefit. And anyone that's not, it's the same story as to when the janitor was asked at NASA, what are you doing? And he said, I'm helping a man get to the moon. He didn't say, I'm cleaning the toilets. Again, with that vision and leadership and ambition that I just spoke about, it becomes far easier to unite people who might feel like they're on the fringes and focus them on the reality that is that without a good customer experience, the patient isn't going to get the treatment they need. It's a vital part of the chain towards the outcome.
Yeah. And
if I can piggyback on what you just said, sorry, I think I remember very well 3 years ago when our new, let's say, vision or mission for Fairing started to get visible for everyone. It created that sense of focus. That is very true, and it created that willingness to look at the same direction. I think let's start there. It might be obvious for some reason, but it can get lost easily. I think when it comes to the function, do you need a function to build the capability or to build the vehicle for it? I guess yes. I'm doing this. I always say internally, I'm the last head of digital for Fairing. If my job well done, then digital has been integrated into each function, right? So it's kind of, this is a type of functions where we are temporary vehicles for transforming till the next big thing. And I think customer experience, a lot of, if you look at the industry, a lot of head of digitals became head of customer experiences. It was kind of a natural expansion of their craft, right? I think yes, you need it till you have a minimum sense of maturity, and you know how to measure that kind of CX maturity. And I think personally, I'm not sure we are still there, right? So we still have work to do on creating a, every time you say customer experience, the first thing you get back is NPS surveys, and that's not it, right? So we need to break that. You need to create the capability, and you need to have some agent of change till you get to that maturity level, and you can then explore the next big thing. At least that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I was just going to say there something similar, Heider, that I think in the short term, the answer might be yes. You do need some agents of change, some agents of action. But I think probably I would venture to say, end of next year, maybe at most early 2022, if this is not on the CEOs or the CDOs, the chief commercial officers agenda, and they are not accountable for it, then those organizations are going to be way behind the others who take this to that same level. Because ultimately, if we are truly serious about creating the next generation experiences, there's a lot that's going to have to be changed, fine-tuned, matured, invested in. The same way as we are embracing new trends in scientific development. And the way that ultimately came about was not because we created a new function, right? Is because the heads of R&D or the CEOs embraced this scientific breakthrough or that scientific breakthrough, whether it's genomics or CRISPR or immunology, all of these immuno-oncology. I mean, all of these ultimately saw the light of day when it was embraced at the top, right? So that's what I think. I mean, short term maybe, but the long term, I would say no, not a different function. It really has to be part of the the top leadership's agenda.
Thank you, Sanjay. Elena?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it in the hands of one person. I would really put it as a clear part of the strategy, a clear part of the brand, of the differentiation, of a competitiveness element. And almost like it has become, if you think about security, right, part of a life cycle development by design, really. If your experiences are not going to be superior, your products are not going to be used, and others will do better. We are in the era of competition of experiences, and as the playing field is digital, I think there are certain lessons learned from the old COVID digital everything, the world posed and everything went remote, that we can really extract. And I would say that hybrid modality and the warm end off from what is in person to what is digital, and a mix of the two as a blended element is the only way forward.
Thank you, Elena. Last question from the audience. What are the KPIs on customer experience? Quite an interesting question, I would say. Who would like to start first?
I'm gonna resume it in 3 words. Adoption, you will see really, and sustained adoption, so that those not only once, but return. Usability, that is really key. And how that experience connects with other experiences in a system, in a pathway, which is back to interoperability. I would add probably security as well.
I very much like Elena's ones. I think the only thing I can add is to perhaps discourage us from using metrics that don't help. We are in a very uncertain environment, and as a result, we've actually managed to get through 56 minutes of this webinar without saying the word agility, which is quite impressive. But I do think that agility is meant for an uncertain environment. That's why startups typically use this, because everything about a startup is uncertain. And startups tend to choose metrics which don't necessarily prove revenues or prove what they call vanity metrics, hits and things like that. They have to prove that when they get higher levels of investment, they're going to be able to convert that into more customers. So they use actually some of the things that Elena said are pretty good metrics for the kind of things that a startup might have to use as well, because they show that we can turn $1 into 2, or we can turn an existing customer into a loyal customer. So I think it's a matter of not just choosing the right metrics, but also realizing that now is the day where kind of adhering to our revenue targets, again, that's another vanity metric in many ways. You can always hit your revenue targets if you spend twice as much to get there. So really being focused on what not to measure, I think, is just as important as what we do measure. And just recognize that learning and change is the capital that's required in an uncertain environment, and learning about our customers as they go through this change is perhaps the greatest learning of all.
Sanjay, Haider, nothing to add?
Yeah.
Well, that was so well said. I think that's a nice summary of our discussion this morning. But in terms of KPIs, the one thing that I will add, which I've seen some organizations, very few, but a couple of organizations do, is to have internal KPIs just as much as they have external KPIs. And internal KPIs, not like the traditional ones like Paul was mentioning, like how many sort of, what is the level of call plan adherence and things like that. I don't think those things really work. There is a place for those things as well, but when we're really talking about transforming customer experiences, it's more about how internally integrated and unified we are. What is our use of the new modern technologies like AI at scale, right? For example, even a simple measure of out of your 100 brands or 10 brands, whatever they might be, how many of them are actually driving AI-based projects to improve customer experiences in more than 5 countries, right? I bet even that KPI is very low for most organizations, right? And I think it's both, the external KPIs, and because one kind of follow the other. So that's what I would add to that.
Yeah. On my side, I have I mean, at least with my colleagues, I'm trying to push the model of having one side that is, how can we go from 0 to 1, taking great idea, and I come back to what Elena said, the adoption. What can we do to go from 0 to 1 and adopt internally everything we can to release something? Because sometimes we have that this by pilot effects within the big companies, and you keep having great ideas, and we come back to that beauty contest. In that 0 to 1 customer experience. Are we ready to kill that experience if it's not working, or scale it if it works? And if it passes gate 2, then we are into that, 1 to infinite. How can we really scale and get that adoption? And really, and I remember one of my mentors back then was telling me, the best market research is sell. The best vote of confidence is someone buying your product, right? So it's and this is where you have a different set of KPIs when you hit the ground and you need to scale, and it come back to that agility that Paul now I said it Paul was mentioning. So you need to be having that culture. It's coming back every time to culture, right? So if you don't have a data driven culture, nobody reads a report, nobody reads the Google Analytics, and nobody reads anything. So if no one is interested in going with a landing page next Monday and looking at the report on Thursday to do the change on Friday and get live next Monday, if you don't have that in your company, then you'll have something else to fix first before calling it a customer experience transformation or something.
Thank you, Haider. I also would like to thank you everyone for joining this interesting session. We will copy all those questions from the audience to our virtual community, so please feel free to engage afterwards. However, I have also a personal question to all of you, so please try to be quite short and quick because we are running out of time, or actually we already ran out of time. Listening to all of you, I actually would like to ask you, I mean, we all know that there are some beautiful solutions out there, including omnipresence, definitely state of the art. But who can disrupt pharma to make this wake-up call for this need of customer experience? Because we all see that, for instance, what happened to the financial industry, right? We see a lot of fintechs who really disrupted the whole ecosystem. So who will do the wake-up call for pharma? Because once again, solutions are here, technology is ready. I believe that omnipresence can implement it immediately, but still, I would say that the decision needs to be taken, right?
You can. When I say you, I mean the viewer. Like, we're always sort of sitting waiting for Microsoft or Amazon or Google or whatever to disrupt our industry, and I think we need to take responsibility ourselves and have faith in ourselves. We still have a lot of smart people in this industry. We still have a lot of potential, unfulfilled potential. I think this is a young industry, not an old one, because if you look at the evolution, even map it against kind of evolutionary theory, we see that everything about pharma is actually a pretty young ecosystem from what it could be. So rely on yourself is my message, and yeah, get inspiration from others, but take responsibility yourself, because we can do it.
I like that, actually, Paul. I like that positive spirit, and we are seeing many new inspiring CDOs and CEOs actually changing trajectory of pharma companies, putting data at the core. I'm saying, the cure of cancer is going to be in the data, or we are a data, based science and medicine company, and so on. So I believe the power is there, and we should just join forces and get it done, because technology is definitely available, and the healthcare providers have felt the pain and have done and gone the digital way.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add to that is, I think the question makes it almost sound like it's something that will happen in the future. When, how? I think this is already happening. I mean, I think the leading organizations, some of the ones that maybe Elena has in mind, which partner with us, which partner with organizations like Microsoft and other big technology organizations, I think are already driving this change. The future is already here. It's just not, evenly distributed amongst all the life sciences organizations.
Haider, final thought?
No, I think it's the same that Paul said. I think it's summarized it, and I think once people start doing it and feeling the impact they have using those new channels and new customer experiences, when they feel it, they get hooked to it. And I have plenty of examples of my firing colleagues who are not experts at all, right, a few years ago, and I'm happy and I'm really proud of them looking at what they are creating to get a better experience for the doctors or for their patients. I think that is definitely possible. We just have to be coached to help them get there. At least I feel like a coach in my industry, helping others getting there.
Thank you. So with that thoughts, I would like to thank you once again for joining this very interesting session. And please feel free to join to the remaining 8 sessions which we are having in the upcoming days. Thank you very much once again. Take care and stay negative, right?
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.